Liam whispers, breathless. This has to be it. The lost temple of Kanu. He hesitates for a moment before muttering to himself. Creepy, but kinda cool. His voice barely carries through the thick silence, but before he can take another step, a deep, rumbling voice fills the chamber. You stand before the guardian of the temple. No one may pass without proving their wisdom. Liam's breath catches as he stammers. Well, wait. You can talk? The voice responds with unshaken authority. I am no ordinary beast. I am the keeper of this temple, and only the worthy may leave. Panic laces Liam's voice as he swallows hard and asks, Worthy? What do you mean? The voice grows heavier, more commanding. Solve my riddle, or face the consequences. A cold wave of fear washes over Liam as he mutters to himself, oh man, this can't be real. But there is no escape, no turning back. The voice presses on, unyielding. You have but one chance. Choose wisely. Liam forces himself to take a deep breath, trying to push away the rising fear, and finally, with as much steadiness as he can manage, he says, All right, what's the riddle? Liam's heart pounds as the gorilla's golden eyes remain locked on him, unblinking, unwavering. He takes a slow step back, but the guardian does not move. The silence is suffocating. His mind races, trying to make sense of what's happening. A talking gorilla, a test of wisdom, no way out. This wasn't part of the plan. He had followed the map, convinced that the stories were just myths, old legends passed down to scare off treasure hunters like him. But now, standing here in the heart of the ancient temple, he realizes the villagers' warnings were real. No one who enters leaves unchanged, they had said. He had laughed it off. Now, he isn't laughing. His fingers tighten around the strap of his backpack, his throat dry. He thinks back to earlier that day when he first arrived in the village. The elders had spoken of a temple hidden deep within the jungle, one that held untold riches but was fiercely protected by the spirit of the wild. They called it the Guardian. Some said it was a ghost, others a god, but no one ever described this. A living, breathing, talking gorilla, standing between him and the only way out. He had shrugged off their warnings, too caught up in the thrill of adventure. It's just a story, he had told himself. But stories don't trap you inside ancient ruins. Stories don't speak with voices that shake the walls. Liam tries to steady his breathing, scanning the temple for another exit, but there's none. The entrance is sealed, the only light flickering from the torches mounted on the stone walls. His gaze drifts to the carvings that cover every inch of the chamber. Ancient symbols, spirals, and figures of animals, all leading up to a central image. A massive gorilla, its arms outstretched, standing above a group of kneeling humans. His stomach twists. The meaning is clear. Those who enter must submit to the Guardian's test. Those who fail face the consequences. He forces himself to look at the gorilla again, searching for any sign of mercy. But there is none. Only patience, only expectation. It is waiting for him to accept his fate. He clenches his fists, forcing down the fear that grips his chest. There is no way around this. No tricks, no shortcuts. If he wants to make it out alive, he has to play the game. With a slow, shaky breath, he straightens his posture and meets the gorilla's piercing gaze. I'm ready, he says, his voice steadier than he feels. The gorilla inclines its head ever so slightly, acknowledging his resolve. Then, in that same deep, rumbling voice, it speaks once more. Then let the challenge begin. The gorilla's golden eyes flicker in the dim torchlight as its voice rumbles through the chamber. I have cities, but no houses. I have mountains, but no trees. I have water, but no fish. What am I? The words settle into the heavy silence, each syllable carrying weight, as if they had been spoken in this place for centuries. Liam's breath catches, a riddle, A test of wisdom. His mind reels, running through the words again. Cities, but no houses? Mountains, but no trees? Water, but no fish? What does that even mean? He swallows hard, shifting on his feet as the gorilla remains motionless, its gaze unwavering. This isn't just a challenge, it's a trial. And if he fails, he knows there will be no second chances. His pulse thuds in his ears as he racks his brain, trying to make sense of the words. His instinct screams at him to say something, anything, but he bites down on his panic. Think. He needs to think. The riddle isn't impossible. It has an answer. He just has to find it. His fingers twitch at his sides, his mind flipping through every possible interpretation. Cities, mountains, water. No houses, no trees, no fish. What has all of these things but not in the way they exist in the real world? He squeezes his eyes shut for a brief moment, focusing, shutting out the pressure, the weight of the gorilla's gaze. A sudden realization sparks in his mind. A map. A map has cities but no houses. It shows mountains, but there are no trees. It has rivers and lakes, but they are only lines on paper. No real water, no fish. His eyes snap open. That has to be it. His heart pounds against his ribs as he looks up at the gorilla, his voice barely above a whisper. A map. The words leave his mouth, and the chamber falls into an unbearable stillness. The torches flicker. The air feels thick, charged with unseen energy. The gorilla does not move, does not react. A cold sweat trickles down Liam's neck as he waits, dread creeping in. Did he get it wrong? Did he just seal his own fate? Then, after what feels like an eternity, the gorilla exhales deeply, a sound that is neither anger nor disappointment. It is something else. A deep, knowing chuckle rumbles from its massive chest, low and thunderous, like the distant echoes of an approaching storm. "You are wise," it finally says, inclining its head. "You may pass." Liam lets out a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. His knees feel weak, his hands trembling from the sheer weight of what just happened. He did it. He answered correctly. He's still alive. But the relief is short-lived as a new thought creeps into his mind. What would have happened if he had been wrong? Liam's breath comes in shallow gasps as the gorilla's words settle over him. "You are wise. You may pass." The tension in his body doesn't fade instantly. It lingers, like a shadow refusing to leave. His legs feel unsteady, his hands still trembling from the weight of the moment. He had done it. He had answered correctly. But something inside him tells him that his victory was not just about knowledge. It was about survival. The Guardian had tested him, judged him, and now, for reasons beyond his understanding, it had allowed him to continue. He should feel relieved, but instead, his mind won't stop spinning with the question that now gnaws at him. What if he had been wrong? His eyes flick toward the walls, scanning the ancient carvings he had barely paid attention to before. Now, with the Guardian's judgment behind him, they seemed to whisper a warning he had been too preoccupied to notice. The stone figures etched into the temple's surface aren't just decorations, they tell a story. And as his gaze moves from one carving to the next, dread seeps into his veins. There, figures of men and women standing before the great gorilla, just as he had. Their expressions are etched in stone, their hands raised in either submission or pleading. And then, further down the wall, the images shift. The figures are no longer standing, they are different now, hardened, frozen. Their faces twisted in expressions of horror, bodies rigid, unmoving. Liam's stomach twists as the truth dawns on him. These weren't just carvings, these were people. People who had come before him. People who had faced the Guardian's riddle and failed. His fingers graze the surface of the cold stone, and for the first time, he realizes the texture isn't just worn by time. It is smooth, polished in places where the figures seem too lifelike. He jerks his hand away, his breath hitching. He had been moments away from sharing their fate, One wrong answer, one hesitation too long, and he wouldn't be standing here. He would be just another part of the temple, another nameless figure in an ancient warning. He turns back to the guardian, whose golden eyes seem to hold an unspoken message. There is no malice in them, no cruelty, only the unwavering presence of something far older and more powerful than Liam can comprehend. It had not acted out of anger or revenge. It had simply upheld the rules, as it had done for centuries, as it would do for centuries more. Liam exhales slowly, forcing himself to push away the lingering fear. He had passed the test. He had earned his freedom. And now, he had to leave this place before he lost himself in the weight of what almost happened. The torches lining the walls flicker, casting long shadows as the temple doors, sealed so tightly before, begin to creak open once more. The humid jungle air rushes in, mixing with the ancient dust of the chamber. Without another word, Liam steps forward, each footfall carrying him further from the guardian's watchful gaze. He doesn't look back. He can't. Some things are not meant to be questioned, not meant to be challenged. He had played the game and won. That was enough. As he crosses the threshold into the fading daylight, the doors groan shut behind him with finality. The temple has claimed enough lives. Today, it would not claim his. Liam stumbles out of the temple, his breath ragged, his body drenched in sweat. The dense jungle air feels different now, thicker, heavier, charged with the weight of what he just experienced. The moment he steps past the threshold, the massive stone doors behind him groan shut with a final, resounding boom. He turns, heart still hammering in his chest, but there is no visible seam, no sign that an entrance was ever there. The temple has swallowed its secret once more, as if it had never opened for him at all. He presses his hands against his knees, trying to steady himself, trying to process everything. The talking gorilla, the riddle, the carvings of those who had failed. He had walked into that temple thinking he was chasing a myth, nothing more than an old legend. But now he knows the truth. The guardian is real. The test is real. And the consequences of failure. He shudders at the thought. If he had hesitated, if he had answered incorrectly, he wouldn't be standing here. He would have become part of the temple's stone walls, just like the others before him. He forces himself to straighten up, taking in his surroundings. The jungle is just as it was when he entered, humid, alive with the sounds of distant wildlife, thick vines hanging low over the path. But something about it feels different, as if the forest itself is watching him now, acknowledging that he has been changed, that he has been judged, and allowed to walk free. A sharp rustle in the bushes makes him flinch. His instincts scream at him to run, but instead, he stands frozen, his eyes scanning the thick foliage. Then, movement. A dark figure shifting between the trees, too fast, too massive to be anything ordinary. Liam's breath catches, a glimpse of fur, a flicker of golden eyes, and then nothing. The jungle falls silent again, but he knows what he saw. The guardian is still watching. He doesn't know if it was letting him go or if it was making sure he never returns. Either way, he understands the warning. The temple is not meant to be disturbed. The legend is not meant to be tested. Swallowing hard, he tightens the straps of his backpack and forces himself to move forward. He has to get back to the village, back to civilization, back to a place where temples don't whisper secrets and riddles don't decide fate. But as he pushes through the thick undergrowth, he knows. He will never forget what happened here. The world may never believe him, but he will always know the truth. The guardian exists. The temple is waiting. And somewhere, deep within the jungle, another traveler will one day stumble upon its doors. And they may not be as lucky as he was. Days pass, but the temple never leaves Liam's mind. No matter how far he travels, No matter how many miles separate him from the jungle, the weight of what he experienced lingers. The guardian's golden eyes haunt his dreams. Its deep voice echoes in his thoughts. He should feel relieved. He survived something no one else had. He solved the riddle, escaped the fate of those who had failed. And yet, he can't shake the feeling that he was never truly free. Back in the village, the elders watch him closely, their knowing eyes filled with quiet understanding. When he tells them what happened, they do not react with surprise. Instead, they nod, as if they had always known he would return changed. One of them, an old man with deep lines carved into his face, places a hand on Liam's shoulder and speaks softly. "You were chosen." The words send a chill down his spine. He wants to ask what that means, why the guardian let him go, why it had tested him in the first place, but he knows he won't get an answer. Some mysteries are not meant to be explained. Some truths are meant to stay hidden. He spends one last night in the village, unable to sleep, staring up at the moonlit sky. He tells himself he should feel lucky. He made it out. He's alive. But a part of him knows this was never just about survival. The guardian was more than just a test of wisdom. It was a warning, a reminder that some places, some powers, are beyond human understanding. By morning, he is ready to leave. As he walks through the village, a few of the elders nod in farewell, while others simply watch in silence. Just as he's about to step onto the trail leading away, a young boy tugs at his sleeve. Liam looks down, startled. The boy's dark eyes are wide with curiosity, his voice barely above a whisper. "Did it speak to you?" Liam hesitates, then nods. "Yes." The boy studies him for a moment, then steps back, his expression unreadable. "It will remember you." A shiver runs down Liam's spine. He opens his mouth to respond, but the boy has already turned and disappeared into the crowd. Liam stands there for a long moment, the weight of those words pressing against his chest. The guardian will remember him, and somehow he knows this isn't the end. One day, whether by fate or by choice, his path will lead him back to the temple. And when it does, the doors will open once more. The jungle does not forget, and neither does the guardian.